Hey guys, my name is Ellie, and I want to show you how I took a live recording of a drum set with 2 microphones and made it sound really big. Let's get into it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show this to you with no processing or very minimal processing, because there is a little processing on the mix bus, which I'm not going to take off. And let's listen. Just to the drums. So they sound good. Let's go home. Or we can make them sound maybe even a little better. Let's give it a shot. Let's start with the overhead, solo that, and we'll go through what's going on here. First we have an SSL, the E channel, and we are shaving off the bottom end, the top end, to keep the kick out of the overheads, at least the thumpy part of the kick out of the overheads. We don't want it there. We have the kick drum for that. And we are shaving off the top end so that the cymbals are not just completely overpowering us. Boosting high end for some nice sheen. Nothing going on in the mid-range. Didn't feel it needed much processing there. And a little tiny boost at 10-ish hertz. A lot of compression going on, 16:1 ratio. Fast release, slow attack so that the transients can get through. We're going to be working on the transients a little more later. Nothing going on here. The compressor is on the channel out. That means that the EQ is going in to the compressor and not vice versa. So let's listen to what just the SSL does. Dry. Oh, it's a pretty big difference. Again, dry. It does get louder, but you can also hear there's a clear difference in the sound. Okay, so we have that. Following that is the SPL Transient Designer Plus. And we have the attack cranked all the way up to 15. It goes all the way to 15. We have sustain, nothing's going on there. I have the limit on, so it's not clipping. I don't know if it would clip anyway. The parallel mix is at around, I would say, a little below 40% maybe, something like that, 40-ish. And I have the sidechain filter on, which basically means that the processing is focusing in on the high end of what's going on here. We can actually hear that. Let's choose a little section here. And we can listen to the sidechain, hear what it's doing. So you can already hear it's adding quite a bit of punch as soon as I hit play. We'll toggle the bypass there and then we'll go into the sidechain. Listen to the snare. Much snappier. Okay, now we're going to go into the sidechain and solo that. So the sidechain is basically letting me hone in more on the snare, a little less on the kick, because when I add in the kick drum, you'll see why. It does not need to be adding in punch in the overhead mic as well. And then we have the NLS mic setting, which is an EMI, I believe, vintage console that used to be in Abbey Road. Sounds amazing. This is 99% of the time I'm mixing drums. This is going to be on all of my drum tracks. Not always cranking it this hard, but it's definitely there and it definitely adds something. So let's unbypass that and let's go to the kick drum. So let's solo the kick. All the processing for the kick is currently off. Not bad. The AKG D112 we used to record it is a good kick microphone. It's my favorite kick microphone, and it sounds really nice. But let's listen to it with the processing. Oh yeah. Okay, so what do we have going on here? We have, again, SSL. Basically, I use SSL on everything. It's just such a great plugin. I love it. I don't even know why I'm cutting 20 hertz, but okay. And I'm cutting everything over 10K to keep a little bit of the cymbal wash out of the kick mic. Boosting 8 kilohertz with a bell, really hard, 15 dB. Nothing in the high mid, cutting hard, 15 dB at 640 hertz with a very wide bell. And boosting again relatively hard at 6 dB, around 60 hertz, which is pretty common for a kick drum. Let's listen to just bypassing the EQ, see what that does. So let's start with it off. That is like day and night. But it's also, as you can see, pretty aggressive moves that I made there, especially in the high end and the low mids. Big time difference. Let's turn the whole thing off. Cool. Sounds really nice. So let's also now listen to what's going on in the dynamic section. I have a gate. Well, it's a expander, I think. So the gate is not engaged, but it's just pulling down when the kick is not hitting so that all the rest of the cymbal bleed and snare bleed and other stuff that's going into the kick mic is not poking out so much. I also have another gate that we'll get to later. Let me turn that off actually for now. That we'll get to later that's doing it even more. Compression, relatively light. Let's listen. Yeah, around 3 dB. Let's go to the Gatey Weighty by Boz Digital. Makes some nice plugins. This one is really useful. It has 3 modes. It has a low pass, a regular gate, and a high pass gate. So basically you can have it so that when the gate is not being opened by whatever's triggering it, in this case the kick drum, it'll be just closing the top end. So you'll still have that low frequency from the kick that can come through, but you won't be having all the cymbals. It just gives it a more natural sound when it opens up. Let's listen without and with. Big difference. You can really hear that hi-hat. And now it's a lot more controlled. A lot more kick. And last thing again, the NLS, EMI. Let's listen to the kick and the overhead together. Still no processing on the drum bus. Nice. So first thing on the drum bus, we have the Sound Toys Decapitator. Really great plugin. I'm using it on the end setting, which is, I think, Neve. So it's mimicking the flavor of a Neve preamp and what that would do to the sound, and I think it sounds absolutely amazing. So let's listen. Bypassed. Oh yeah. It's subtle, but it's there. Definitely there. Really nice. Next up, the API 2500 compressor. This guy is compressing quickly with a 2-to-1 ratio and releasing quickly. Hard knee, medium thrust, the new feed-forward style of compression. Nothing going on in the link because this is all mono. One overhead, one kick. There's no reason for stereo here. Analog is on. I don't know how much it does, but I like it on. It makes me feel better that the analog is on. Let's actually toggle the on-off from here. So actually, before we start, let's talk a little about the tone section. You have normal, you have medium, you have loud. And normal, basically, it's sort of like internal side chain of the API compressor. Normal is not doing anything. Medium is attenuating the low end and boosting the high end so that the compressor is reacting more to the high end and less to the low end. It's not doing anything to the mid-range. And the loud is a linear line going up. And it has more attenuation to the low end and more boost to the mid and even more to the high. So basically what's happening is that the compressor is compressing more from the high end and less on the low end. So you have a much more punchy, low-end heavy sound when it's like that. So let's listen. I had it on the medium. We'll go back to that eventually, but let's listen through all of them. You'll definitely hear a difference, especially between the loud and the normal. At least if you're listening on good headphones. Okay, here we go. This is without it. Engage. I am hitting these drums hard. I know. But it sounds good. At least to me. Okay, now let's toggle through the different tones. Medium. Okay, so you can definitely hear that when you go to the normal, the higher frequencies become much more pronounced and noticeable. And when you go to the loud, it is really squashing them quite a bit. So I like the medium here. Definitely there are times where you want to use loud, there are times you want to use normal. In this case, I wanted to use medium, and it sounds great. Let's listen to that again. Very nice, very nice. Now let's go to the mix bus. We have here T-Rex 1, mostly doing just some level boosting and some high end, some air being added on, followed by the NLS EMI, which is just trimming it down to keep the levels. I like them to be hitting around 6, -5 dB. Followed by Brainworks Master Desk. Not doing a whole lot, but it does something to the sound that sometimes is nice. I don't use it all the time, actually not even very often, but I felt it really fit what I was doing on this recording. Then we have a clipper, which is basically just clipping off the transients before hitting the limiter so that the limiter is going to be working less, because the clipper is much more transparent, especially if you're using it at low gain reduction, which I think this is around -2, -3 dB. Let's look and see what that's doing. -2 dB. And just so you can see, let's open up the limiter and the clipper and see what happens to the limiter when the clipper is engaged and when it's not. Okay. Watch the gain reduction. Nothing's going on. Oh. What was that? So watch again. When I turn off the clipper, the limiter all of a sudden starts limiting because those transients are triggering it. But here I'm shaving them off with the clipper, and the limiter is just boosting the signal and protecting my output at -2 dB true peak from digitally clipping, which I don't want. So having a clipper before your limiter is a really nice way to do things and keep it transparent and not pumping the limiter, but still get it really loud. Let's listen again. I'll start with it off and then turn it on. Okay, so now let's listen to the drums also with the effects. Send to a hall reverb, a room reverb, and a plate reverb. The hall, let's look at those effects actually. The hall is a Valhalla vintage verb, 2.5 second decay, 4 second decay on the room. The plate is Arturia Rev Plate 140, really nice sounding plate reverb. Usually I use a Sound Toys plate reverb, but I just felt like using the Arturia this time around. And let's see what those guys sound like. Just the hall. That really is really nice. Valhalla makes a really nice reverb. Nice. Okay. With, without. Okay, so let's unsolo the drums and listen to the whole mix. I hope you guys like it. Well, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please subscribe. I'm going to be making some more videos, and I'll see you soon.